For decades, the United States has been considered a strong friend and strategic partner for many countries in Asia. American aid, trade deals, military cooperation, and cultural exchange programs helped build long-lasting alliances. But in 2025, that picture is changing. Across Asia, several countries are rethinking their relationship with the U.S. Some are gradually reducing reliance on Washington, while others are actively exploring alternative partnerships with China, regional neighbors, or the Middle East. In this video, we will take a detailed look at 7 Asian countries that are stepping back from the U.S. in 2025. We will explore the economic, political, and strategic reasons behind each decision and what it means for citizens, businesses, and governments. By the end of this video, you will understand why these shifts are happening, how they affect ordinary people, and what might come next in Asia-US relations. Number 7. Indonesia. Indonesia, the largest economy in Southeast Asia, is slowly moving away from its historically close relationship with the United States. One of the main drivers is trade pressure. The US has raised concerns about Indonesia's human rights and environmental policies, especially in industries like palm oil and nickel mining, which are vital to the national economy. These exports support millions of jobs and are a significant source of government revenue. Washington's trade limits on these products have been seen in Jakarta as interference in domestic affairs. At the same time, Indonesia is diversifying its international partnerships. China is now a leading buyer of Indonesian nickel, while Middle Eastern countries are investing heavily in energy, infrastructure, and tourism projects. The US still buys Indonesian goods, but trust is declining. Indonesia is signaling that it will work with partners who respect its choices, rather than depending entirely on Washington. For ordinary Indonesians, this shift may bring new economic opportunities. Chinese and Middle Eastern investments could create jobs in energy, mining, and infrastructure. However, there are also risks, such as over-reliance on foreign investors or geopolitical tension if Washington responds negatively. Number 6. Pakistan. Pakistan has a long history of complex relations with the United States. In 2025, the relationship is at one of its lowest points in decades. The primary cause is Washington's strengthened partnership with India, Pakistan's longtime rival. For Islamabad, this sends a message that the US may no longer be a reliable ally. Historically, Pakistan relied on US military aid, trade support, and diplomatic backing. Losing that means Pakistan has had to seek alternative partners. As a result, the country is strengthening its ties with China, participating in the Belt and Road Initiative, and expanding cooperation with Russia and other nations that do not attach heavy political conditions to their agreements. While Pakistan hasn't fully severed ties with the US, trust has diminished. Many joint projects are paused, and high-level diplomatic visits have decreased. For Pakistani citizens, the impact is noticeable. Students, engineers, and workers may find new opportunities in China or regional countries, while tourism and cultural exchanges with the US may decline. In strategic terms, Pakistan is signaling that alliances will now prioritize national interests over historical loyalty. Number 5. Malaysia. Malaysia's ties with the US are cooling as well. Washington has expressed concerns about Malaysia's domestic policies and its growing trade and security relationship with China. For Malaysia, this is largely about perceived interference. Leaders want to maintain a balanced foreign policy, keeping strong relations with multiple countries rather than depending on a single partner. In practice, Malaysia is increasing cooperation with neighboring Asian countries, China, and Middle Eastern nations. These partnerships cover trade, tourism, and military training, and often come without strict political demands. The US remains an important partner, but it is no longer Malaysia's top priority. The message from Kuala Lumpur is clear. Malaysia will engage with the US only if it is treated as an equal partner, not as a country dictated by American preferences. For citizens, the diversification strategy could mean access to more international investment, broader trade opportunities, and increased economic stability, even if some US-related programs see reduced support. So, Nepal has historically benefited from US aid and diplomatic attention. But, the relationship is changing. In 2025, ties are cooling, mainly because of 2 big factors. Nepal's closer links with China, and reductions in U.S. aid programs. These days, Nepal is pursuing large infrastructure and trade projects with backing from China, like roads, power plants, and even railways. Leaders are saying they're open to working with any country that offers fair deals, as long as there aren't, well, too many political strings attached. With U.S. aid programs reduced after some disagreements over how funds should be allocated, Nepal is strengthening its relations with India, Gulf nations, and even Russia. For Nepalese citizens, this brings a mix of outcomes. On one hand, there are more jobs and investment, but on the other, there could be long-term debt issues or just increased reliance on foreign financing. Nepal's approach is pretty clear. It wants to keep friendly ties with the US, but it won't let any single country dictate its decisions. The focus is really on making sovereign choices and building economic independence. Vietnam's relationship with the US is, well, facing new tensions in 2025. Trade is still important, but political disagreements are starting to create friction. The US has criticized Vietnam's restrictions on free speech and political activities, and has raised concerns about human rights issues. But Hanoi sees this as interference in its domestic affairs. There's also the matter of the South China Sea. While the US is urging Vietnam to take a tougher stance against China, Vietnam actually prefers a more balanced approach, managing its relationships to protect economic growth. Because of all this, Vietnam is expanding ties with South Korea, Japan, and its ASEAN neighbors. These partnerships are bringing trade and investment, but without the political pressure that comes from Washington. This shift gives Vietnam greater independence, though it might also mean losing out on some US trade benefits. Cooperation is still happening, but honestly, the trust and closeness of previous decades are just not as strong anymore. So China's relationship with the United States is honestly at one of its lowest points in decades. The conflict spans across trade, technology, military presence, and, well, global influence too. Trade wars are still going on, tariffs remain in place, and restrictions on artificial intelligence and advanced technology are pushing China to really focus on self-reliance. Military tensions are, frankly, quite high. The United States keeps a strong presence in Asia, strengthens alliances with Japan, Australia, and the Philippines, and signals concern over Taiwan. China sees all of this as an attempt to contain its growth. In response, Beijing has ramped up military drills and strengthened ties with Russia and other global partners. For ordinary Chinese citizens, the consequences are noticeable. Business access to United States markets has decreased, fewer students are studying in the United States, and tourism between the two countries has slowed down. China is now actively building a future that's less dependent on the United States, focusing on domestic development and partnerships in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. The Philippines is making, well, a surprising shift in foreign policy. Once one of the United States' strongest allies in Asia, Manila is now stepping back. Many Filipino leaders feel that the United States gives more than it receives. Despite years of military aid and disaster support, the Philippines continues to face challenges, especially in defending its territory in the South China Sea. The country is diversifying its economic partnerships, strengthening ties with China, South Korea, and Middle Eastern nations. These partners often offer investments with fewer political conditions, which is pretty attractive to Manila. For citizens, the shift brings potential jobs, infrastructure improvements, and new technology, but it may reduce some United States security guarantees. The Philippines is pursuing a multi-directional foreign policy, keeping relationships with multiple nations without over-dependence on just one. The United States remains a friend, but it's no longer the only friend that matters, marking a significant change in the Philippines' international role. These 7 countries, Indonesia, Pakistan, Malaysia, Nepal, Vietnam, China, and the Philippines, are all rethinking their ties with the United States in 2025. The reasons really vary: trade disputes, political interference, security concerns, and new regional alliances. For ordinary citizens, these changes affect jobs, education, business opportunities, and travel. For governments, it reflects a shift toward independent and diversified foreign policies. Which of these countries do you think will fully break ties with the United States first? Comment below. I'll be reading and replying to your thoughts.